motherfucking country. Whose street?
Our streets!
Whose street?
Our streets!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
No justice!
No peace!
No races!
Police!
No justice!
No peace!
No races!
Police!
What do you want?
Justice!
What do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
What do we want it?
Now!
If we don't get it,
Shut it down!
we don't get it.
Shut it down!
They have a burial right here for the colonizers. Where the fuck is our burial memorial?
Where did they put the bodies that they lynched in Boston Common?
Where? Where are these bodies? Where are the bodies of hundreds of black men and women and trans women and queer women, black people that have been killed in those films? Where are their bodies?
Where did they put the bodies of the indigenous people that they murdered for this land?
They got the colonizers propped up right there. Whose street?
Our streets!
Whose street?
Our streets!
Whose street?
Our streets!
Whose street?
Our streets!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
We don't get it!
Shut it down!
We don't get it!
Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Alright, y'all, we're coming up on our next stop, our next little fact check point. I don't know if that goes, but I kind of like the way that sounds.
Learning. He's having fun learning, like,
Yes.
I need to learn this shit. Tell your friends I'm serious, yo. Go on Instagram Live. We are the future. We young as fuck out here. The same age that Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They were all age.
They were all, did y'all know that Malcolm X grew up in Roxbury? Yes, this man grew up, lived with his aunt in Roxbury, Massachusetts. He found Islam and was radicalized in a Suffolk County prison. The Malcolm X that we all know and read about to this day found himself and his journey in Massachusetts.
Make sure you read the real read about Malcolm X, not the one that they tell us in history class, because they lying. They lying.
So, we're going to take over the space like we
Take
said.
over this space.
Try to stay together. We're going to keep it safe. We're going to
Take
keep
this
it
space.
safe. So, like we talked about on our journey over here, nearly 200 years ago, public education was held in high esteem by Horace Mann and his peers. Yet violence erupted in this same city at the thought of integrating schools. 2 years after Martin Luther King Jr.'s march through the Commons, the state district court passed the Racial Imbalance Act of 1965, which ordered desegregation of all Massachusetts public schools. This law was not enforced in full until a federal court ruling in 1974, almost 10 years later, deeming that Boston's racist school assignment violated the 14th Amendment. In 1974, Boston's busing program, which we touched on slightly as we prepared for this march, was developed so that children from various Boston neighborhoods could attend schools around the city. Throughout the early history of the Boston busing program, racist Bostonians protested the desegregation of the state's public schools. Let me break that down a little bit further. Racist Bostonians thought it was so horrible and egregious that black and brown students could study and learn alongside white students that they turned to violence. That they turned to violence. On the steps of City Hall.
Don't engage politics, okay? Don't pay him any attention.
All lives matter! 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 All lives
easy. It's easy. They try to make it so hard. It's so easy.
It is simple. It is simple. I'm gonna start over. On the steps of City Hall, which we will approach shortly, a black lawyer named Theodore Landsmark was violently attacked by racist white teenagers, moved to violence by the thought of busing young black children to be educated alongside white children. Landsmark was merely exiting City Hall. It was nearly beaten senseless by a white teenager armed with nothing but the American flag. There is an award-winning photograph of a white teenager holding an American flag near to the impaling point of Landsmark's torso. That was taken at City Hall. This was 44 years
I'm not
ago.
KKK, and I'm
This
not a white
happened.
racist. Your group tried to kill me. 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 White people get killed by the police. Last year, 25 white people were killed by, in the last year, 25 white people were killed by the police. Well,
It's over 1,000 here. It's disproportionately black.
by what proportion? By population?
This is what we want to be, right?
There are more black people in the United States than there are white people. Black people so far in the last year.
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? What do we want it? If we don't get it, shut it down. We don't get it, shut it down. We don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down.
If we don't get it,
Shut it down.
I just love it on your face, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to shut down these fucking streets, tell these rude ass cars to shut the fuck up for a minute, and we learned something together as a community. As we just learned, the desegregation of schools, the desegregation of spaces for education was a point of very strong contention. So the mere fact of a diverse group of people coming together to learn about Boston's black history is radical in the face of that dissent 44 years ago. It is extremely important for us to know our history. How can you move forward if you don't know where you've already been? How can you move forward if you don't know where you've already been? That is why we are learning today. That is why we are marching together today.
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
Hey, hey. Ho, ho.
These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
These racist cops have got to go.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These racist cops have got to go!
Take it down. Shut this down.
We're just gonna take over
Fill our
this
bodies in this room.
patch of green real quick, because we're not done talking about education. We're not done learning together, and we got a couple more points. But I do think it is also powerful and important to take a moment and think about the fact that in the face of desegregating schools, a black educated man, a black lawyer, exiting these doors of City Hall in this same space was almost beaten to death because the thought of white children and black children learning together was so enraging. So I just want us to stand here for a second in this same space and think about how 44 years ago, a black man was almost beaten to death with the American flag at the thought of integrating schools. This racist legacy of pushing out and pushing aside Black and brown communities of Boston continues to this day. In June of this year, June of 2020, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition found that Boston is the third most gentrified city in the nation, with Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, and Dorchester being some of the most at-risk communities for suffering gentrification. A fact that many Black Boston natives marching with us today may not find as a surprise. Northeastern University, my alma mater, an institution that claims to be, and I quote, committed to creating a diverse and inclusive community to advance justice and cultural literacy and help eradicate systemic racism, has been one of the leading forces in the gentrification of Roxbury, a community in which 2 to 3 generations of my family grew up. Northeastern has used underhanded tactics such as submitting construction amendments to plans originally approved by Roxbury residents in order to eat up living spaces that Roxbury natives live in and raise their families in order to construct towering dormitories within the community. The irony should not be lost on us that this educational institution has consistently excluded and obscured its Black and brown neighbors with merely performative efforts to integrate Black scholars. Black students only make up 3% of the population at Northeastern University, and yet they are consuming Black and brown neighborhoods at an extremely aggressive rate. There are a lot of college students out here with us. There are a lot of college-age allies out here with us. And we want to reinforce and express to y'all that college students need to pressure their institutions to use their wealth, to use their leverage, to use their influence to help empower the Black and brown communities that they build their dormitories, in their laboratories, in their engineering stadiums, and whatever the fuck else. Besides, it is up to us, the students, the people who pay these institutions, who then take that money and oppress your Black and brown neighbors. It is up to us to express that we need to be supporting our neighbors and use the levers that we have to empower Black and brown communities, whether that be through tutoring programs, whether that be through funding their education at these institutions, whether that be developing community centers instead of dormitories that tear down apartments and assisted living, after-school programs, anything. It is up to us to demand accountability from the educational institutions that we attend. Because if you are a student, a Northeastern student, an Emerson student, a BU student, whatever, if you are here and you are learning in this space, the Black and brown people who have raised their families here, who have grown up here, who have built Boston into what it is through paying their taxes, through working different jobs, whether it be for the MBTA, whether it be for construction, they created this space that you now enjoy. The very least that you can do is to make sure that the schools that you attend don't oppress them and don't erase them.
Yes.
It is the least you can do. These are your neighbors. Do not fear them. These are your neighbors. Do not fear them. They have no reason to harm you. They're the ones being harmed by the universities that you attend. But you can change that with your voice and with your power. You have power and you have influence. Please use it. Please use it appropriately. Please use it in a way that betters the communities around you. It is the very least that you can do. So,
be organized, y'all. Go to your admins and stuff and be like, yo, we need to do this. Y'all have the power. We were strangers not too long ago. And now we're all here together on the other side of the U.S. protesting. Organize.
So, State Street is a station, a stop on the MBTA, and it is the old State House for Massachusetts. It's the old State House, very small. When we keep marching, y'all will be able to see it if you just look down this street. On State Street, the very first life that was sacrificed to create the United States of America was one of African and Wampanoag ancestry. Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a black Wampanoag man who was killed here on State Street in the Boston Massacre of 1770. The Boston Massacre, which many of us were taught in full emphasis with gusto, the Boston Massacre, it was the propelling force that brought the United States of America to where it is today. The first human being who was murdered during the Boston Massacre was African and Native American. The political catalyst of the American Revolution was incited with the blood of an African and Wampanoag person. And I keep on saying it over and over again because some of the most oppressed people to this day in this country are African descent, either from Africa, because ICE is locking up black people aside brown people, and indigenous. The inception, the inciting force of the creation of the United States of America shed the blood that is still being spilled today by African American, African, and indigenous people. Crispus Attucks' murder occurred in 1770. Slavery was not abolished in Massachusetts until 1781. Until 1781. Let that sit. The first life that was sacrificed at the inception of the United States of America was an African and indigenous person's life. This person lived while slavery was still in place in Massachusetts. He died while slavery was still in place in Massachusetts. But his life was one of the sparking forces for the conception of this country. We're gonna keep it pushing, y'all. Black Lives Matter! 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 We're coming up on a set of steps. Be aware. Tell your neighbors behind you. Tell your community members behind you to watch out for the stairs. I almost fell. Watch out for these stairs, y'all. They're serious. No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! Black Lives Matter! 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 We're gonna shut it down. We gonna shut it down, cause if we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. I said if we don't get it, shut it down. I said if we don't get it, shut it down. I love it when y'all say it. This is our right. This is our right as American citizens, as people who contribute to the functioning, the continuing functioning, however dysfunctional, we know capitalism is an issue, but however dysfunctional, we are contributing to the way that America continues to grow and to thrive. We have a right to take a space and to leave commentary on how America functions and thrives. So if there is no issue, there is no wrong being done by blocking some traffic and having your voice be heard. And I'm saying that because I really hope, like, we're from Los Angeles. We're gonna be going back to Los Angeles. We don't want y'all to stop using your voice when we're gone. It is very important. Your voice matters. What you do here in the space that you take up here matters. Please continue. The fight isn't over. Please continue. They're acting like they can't hear us. They're acting like the things that we are saying they can't comprehend. And they're going to keep on getting away with the abuses that they're doing against Black and brown people in this country if we don't use our voice. So, we are reached Faneuil Hall. Faneuil Hall is also known as the cradle of liberty in many patriotic spaces. Thank y'all. That's also something that's really interesting because sirens shouldn't be used unless there's an emergency, but oftentimes you'll see it here, ambulances and police cars using their sirens to break traffic laws because they think that they are above the law. Mr. Thomas says, defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police!
Defund the police!
They really run. So, we have reached Faneuil Hall. Faneuil Hall is also known as the cradle of liberty in many patriotic spaces. This so-called cradle of liberty is mere steps from where African hostages, stolen and enslaved, were brutalized, bought, and sold after traveling the Middle Passage, a route ended as the most violent and deadly voyage these human beings were forced to endure. I know, as a Black Bostonian, having lived here since the age of 0 to 24, that I was never taught that slaves were bought and sold in this space. I was never taught that slaves were bought and sold in this space. It's important that we know these things. One, because it teaches us that this place that people uphold as the grand mecca of education in the United States has blood on its hands, and it is just as culpable for the oppression that occurred then as it is for the oppression occurring now.
Thank you. And like she said, that stuff all carries to this day. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about specifically what we're involved in. So they just approved their budget, which is $414 million and $60 million in overtime is what they spent last year. That's a lot of money. The average Boston police officer right now is making $124,000. And these people only trained to have guns for 20 weeks. And they don't go through racial violence. They don't do anything like that. They don't do anything like that. Okay? These are the people that were left out. These are the people that were angry in high school, bullying people, now terrorizing our streets. 9 officers were just arrested in Boston. When I landed, I was like, I haven't been here 3-4 years. I really want to know what's happening in Boston Police Department. And 9 officers were just arrested for stealing and embezzling $200,000, right? But you will not get arrested or taken off the force for killing a fucking black person. What sense does that make? What sense does that make? When it's money, because property and money in a capitalist economy is worth more than a black life. What the fuck is that? That makes no sense. And it had a police union head 2 years ago while he was the head of the police union. If y'all don't know what police unions are, they protect and establish laws and rules and protections against the police in their jobs, like any regular union. One of those is qualified immunity, which means if you kill a black person, you're immune, okay? You didn't get thrown off the island or nothing. You can stay in the police force, which is why people, when they kill people like Kenneth Ross Jr. or Dijon Kizzee recently, you can hear on their audio tapes, you'll be okay, you'll be all right, relax, dude, relax. That's what they said after they shot Kenneth Ross Jr. in California. You'll be alright, because they know they have this qualified immunity. Look at them once again. Okay, they're not taking this way. But that police union head, who's in charge of protecting all those police, in Boston, yeah, back to Boston, the police union head in Boston was taken advantage of, raping young girls, and he was running Boston police. What the fuck is that? What is this world and system that we are living in? This shit has to fucking change. Take away qualified immunity. It is not that hard. If you prove somebody you are guilty, it's been proven innocent. No, you are innocent until proven guilty, but you cannot have your job. You cannot stay on the police force. You need to be taken off, fired, and tried and thrown in jail like anybody else who kills somebody until we figure out what the fuck happened. Okay? And let's take their fucking money. Their budget is 240 times the fucking neighborhood rebuilding budget. The funds to rebuild neighborhoods. That is fucked up. 240 times. 240 times. Okay? No. 14 times. 240 times the park and rents. So the public health and neighborhood rebuilding is only fucking not even half of the budget. They don't give a fuck about black communities. They don't give a fuck about the neighborhoods. They don't give a fuck about the health, the lack of resources that are given to us. There's simple things that can be changed, and we just need to make sure that we're demanding that change, that we're hitting these streets, we're gathering in our colleges and talking about it. Bring up qualified immunity. Google what that is. That shit is fucked up. And their badges said runaway slave patrol, do not forget that. Okay? It's just repolished. It's just repolished. It's definitely ingrained. It's the same fucking shit. Fuck the police!
Fuck the police!
Fuck the police!
Fuck the police!
No justice!
No peace!
No races!
Police!
No justice!
No peace!
No races!
Police!
Food streets!
Our streets!
Food streets!
Our streets!
Food streets!
Our streets!
Food streets!
Our streets! All right, y'all. So we have reached the end of our walking tour. Just want to make sure all of our friends and community members are out in the street and safe.
Good shit, yeah.
So once again, I want to reiterate, I'm really appreciative to have marched with y'all, to have learned with y'all, to have fought for justice with y'all. I want to re-emphasize again, the fight isn't over. It's extremely, extremely important, not just for me. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Not just for me as a black woman, not just for me as a person within the activist space, but it is so fucking close to my heart as a black Bostonian to make sure that this shit does not die in this city. I'm not gonna be here to do another march. I'm not gonna be here in a couple days, but I don't want to hear from my friends and family here that it just ended after this march. I hope that y'all have also learned that protest alongside saying fuck the police, because fuck them for real. Alongside saying that, you can educate each other. You can share with one another why we are doing this and why it is important. Because it's so fucking important. It is your right as an American citizen to take up space and to critique the government that is supposed to be serving you. They are not our overlords. They are our servants.
Protect and serve black people. Protect and serve indigenous people that vote this country to what it is today.
I want to give extra special thank you to all of the Black Bostonians that marched with us today. Thank you so much for coming out here. in the street for dead, to be mocked for our pain and for our suffering that we did nothing to deserve. I know it's not easy, so thank you for coming out and for marching with us. I hope that you feel seen, because that was a giant, giant mission for this march, is to teach y'all that there have been some beautiful things that also happened in Boston due to Black Bostonians. The very, very first places of education for Black students in this nation is here. Know that with pride. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your little cutout, anybody who wasn't here today, about how important Black Bostonians have been for the American Revolution, Crispus Attucks, for education in this country. Share that with them. It is one of the deepest pains in my heart to know